What character had the best character arc? Zuko in Avatar, The Last Airbender. Michael Corleone. By the end of Godfather 2, he's become even more ruthless than his father. Boromir had a pretty solid one. I like how his arc comes full circle. He isn't any different from what we see at the start, super brave, ass-kicking leader of men. The ring brings about a change in Boromir, as it eventually does to everyone, but it's how steadfast Boromir is to his own character that he sees he is making a mistake and sacrifices his life in an attempt to fix it. The exact character traits that got him sent to Rivendell in the first place are what saves him from the ring's influence. Most people would die at 1 arrow, let alone 2. But he took 3. What arrows? Those were small trees practically. Man, that thud they made just sounded brutal, like a dude getting hit with a ballista. LT. Dan. He went from a man who was determined to fulfill a family destiny, to losing everything he cared about, to slowly discovering a joy and meaning in life again. A lesser movie could have beautifully tied up his arc after the storm, but they ducking brought him back at the end with titanium legs, a Vietnamese fianc, and an audience ticket aboard the Fields train. Say what you will of the movie, but Gary Sinise was born to play that role. Edit, holy shit, first silver. Thanks, kind stranger. Edit 2, and first gold. Thanks again, kind stranger. Don't you ever call him stupid. It wasn't until I rewatched it when I was older, but I found that moment in that scene to be one of the most emotional and the real turning point for LT Dam. Cause up until then LT Dam treats Forrest like he's stupid and an idiot and doesn't appreciate him. It's not until he hears someone else call him stupid that he realizes what Forrest actually means to him. Ice King. It's such a sad story for him. He doesn't even get a happy ending. Well, there's going to be a comic called Simon and Marcy, or something like that, that takes place after the finale, so who knows, he could end up getting a happy ending. Javert in Les Miserables. I always appreciate a villain who genuinely believes he's doing the right thing. It's human. Megamind. He went from full-on supervillain to understanding the complexities of understanding the importance of good and evil. Now he is a full-blown superhero. Roland Presbeluski from The Wire. He started off as an entitled, useless hothead who blinded a kid for looking at him wrong, but then he transitioned into a somewhat reliable officer who ended up going into teaching to try to help the youth. Phil Connors in Groundhog Day. Phil? Phil Connors? I thought that was you. Don't say you don't remember me, because I sure as heckfire remember you. Read a good theory recently that Ned Ryerson was actually the devil, and the reason behind Phil's imprisonment in the time loop. What rabbit hole have you dragged me into? Charles Emerson Winchester III from MASH. He went from high-class snob to very likable character with a lot of depth in the last few seasons of MASH. Yes, definitely preferred him over whiny, no-lipped, ferret face. They really wrote Burns into a corner. They couldn't really do anything to redeem him. I believe a big part of why Larry Linville left was because he really felt the character was a dead end and would hold the show back. It was also at that point where it shifted from a mostly comedic show to a more dramatic one. The episode Margaret's Engagement has one of the most heartbreaking lines in TV history. Well, you see, I had this friend and this friend, well, just pretended to like me, you know the way Dad used to. Chuckles, he's crying. In that moment, everything about Frank makes sense. His attitude, his love of authoritarianism, his mental illness, the Novocaine mutiny. At that point, it's clear that Frank needs to be hospitalized and there was no way to write him out of that hole. By the time he leaves, you feel bad for the character. He's a total shit, but damn it, to hear that insight into his childhood suddenly explains everything. It absolutely broke my heart when he is watching Margaret and her new husband fly away in the helicopter, and he looks completely defeated and says goodbye, Margaret. As much as he can be difficult to the other characters and how much we make jokes about him, he really did love her, and I felt so bad for him in the end. Especially since her marriage didn't even last that long. Peggy Olson. With the kicker being the whole series really ended up being about her in a way. While you are mesmerized by Don Draper's insanely powerful charms that only seem to serve his self-destructive cycles, leaving him again and again broken and in the same place, Peggy is slowly starting to chew the scenery and become one of the most convincingly transformed, fully fleshed out characters in a series. Her badass saunter into her new office at the end, sunglasses, cigarette, Japanese erotic office wall art under her arm for all to see, is Peggy in her final form, one so inevitable if you have watched the whole show, but unimaginable if you only knew her as the character in the beginning. That Boa Arthur Morgan edit, in case anybody hasn't finished RDR2, you really shouldn't read any of the replies here. There are huge spoilers for the game and I'd hate to ruin it for you. Probably the Elric brothers from Fullmetal Alchemist, Brotherhood. Their arcs are so intertwined and so amazing at the same time. Absolutely, it's been years but Ed's still one of my favorite male characters in anime. Sawyer from Lost started off as a cliché, hard-ass only in it for himself character whose motivations were written all over his face. Over the course of the show, he became one of the deepest and richest characters in all of television history. He experienced more growth as a person than almost any other character I can ever remember. We've seen him as a frightened child, to the extremely selfish and isolate loner, to the con man, to the frequently reluctant leader of the survivors, to a person in a position of authority who has the unbinding trust and love from everyone who knew him. He and Juliet were such a great couple. I was seriously hoping they would both survive and go on to have a bunch of tough, beautiful blonde babies who would kick the asses of Jack and Kate's brunettes, who'd just cry all the time. I remember for the longest time not liking that relationship, because it kind of came out of nowhere at the time. It felt like it was just a way to add more drama to the love quadrangle that was going on with them, Jack and Kate. That was until I stepped back and realized that out of all the couples, they had spent the most time together, and it just made a lot more sense that they grew into an actual couple. That was until I stepped back and realized that out of all the couples, they had spent the most time together. We sometimes forget the 3 years they spent in the past together because of all the weird time changes. One of my favorite scenes from the series is when Juliet is about to fall into the pit and Sawyer holds on to her, even begging Kate to come help her. The emotion in his voice. Ducking hell, what an amazing scene. Chihiro from Spirited Away. I like this answer. She grows up so much and becomes so brave and independent over the course of the story. She learns to confront a variety of frightening and difficult situations. Excellent material for kids to see. Yeah. While her story arc isn't dramatic, it's very real and well put. 5s from Clone Wars. From a normal soldier to one of the most important clones in the complete Star Wars story, he could have saved the galaxy. Loved the entire recruit squad. They did my boy dirty. Even though you know that he couldn't succeed, still gutted me to watch that arc. Eleanor on The Good Place. Eat it. Holy forking shirt balls, someone gave me gold. Thank you, internet stranger. I think Michael's and Janet's are just as good, if not better. But it's Jason that has the most potential. Kind of a wait and see situation to see where they take him. Prince Zuko from Avatar, The Last Airbender. From the first 10 minutes of the series we see his anger and obsession with catching the Avatar. Over 3 seasons he changes into a valuable ally. His arc is so compelling because he gets what he wants eventually, to be welcomed home by his father, but it does not please him and that causes internal turmoil. Came here to say this. His story, and a Rose molding of him, is legit my favorite part of the show. Lionel from Person of Interest. He went from side crook policeman in the pilot to shady informant exploited and talked down by the protagonist to anti-hero to sidekick to legitimate hero and heart of the show. I was so glad he survived the end of the show. Man, him talking about how Carter changes him is an underappreciated scene. Elias has a solid arc as well. I have to go with Big Boss downward spiral in the Metal Gear Solid series. He progressively goes from a patriotic soldier to a mercenary with an ideology to a demon obsessed with revenge against the world that caused him so much pain. Edit. Someone asked for a recap for those who haven't played the games, so I wrote one up here, reddit.com. Basically everyone from The Wire. That show had some fantastic writing. And yet the master stroke of that show was the kids introduced in season 3 end up becoming adults we have already met in the show. Dookie becomes Bubs. Mike becomes Omar. They had arcs, for better or worse, but there is a damning predetermination in that city. Notice that none of the kids decide to be cops when they grow up? Because their neighborhood doesn't produce the cops. Worth noting that we're unsure of the fate of the kid who got out.